him. I want to kill him. He's mine.
Tip later claimed that Sophie's presence gave him a moment's pause, but whether that is true or not, who knows. What we do know is that he pulled his gun out and fired, shooting the couple at point-blank range.
I looked, it was on a trolley without a sheet, lay the Prime Minister of India soaked in blood.
Assassinations are not accidents. They are not random outbursts of anger. They are decisions that were carefully calculated, deeply thought out, and executed with precision. And when they succeed, they don't just kill a man or a woman, they shift their destinies of nations after it. Think about this. Julius Caesar walking into the Senate thinking he was among friends, only to be stabbed 23 times by the very men he trusted. Or John Kennedy smiling at the crowd in Dallas, unaware that a sniper rifle was already locked on his motorcade. These are not just killings, they are messages written in blood, designed to change history. In this video, we're going to walk you through 10 of the most calculated assassinations the world have ever seen. And each one of them left a scar that is still felt until today. But to ride on, don't forget to like and subscribe. In Rome, 44 BC, Julius Caesar wasn't just a ruler, he was the man who turned Rome from a fragile republic into a world power. But the more powerful he became, the more dangerous he looked to the Senate. To them, Caesar wasn't leading Rome anymore, he was owning it. And that terrified each and every one of them. On the Ides of March, Caesar walked into the Senate chamber, confident and untouchable. What he didn't know was that nearly every man in that room had already made up his fate. The moment the first knife went in, it was chaos. Friends turned into executioners. He was stabbed in 23 times, not by enemies from afar, but by the very men who had eaten with him, laughed with him, and sworn loyalty to him. That assassination wasn't just about removing Caesar, it was about stopping Rome from becoming a monarchy under his rule. But ironically, killing him didn't save the republic, rather it destroyed it. His death triggered years of civil war, and in the end, Rome got an emperor anyways. And this is the brutal truth about assassination. They rarely stop what they set out to destroy. Sometimes they accelerate it, which brings us to another man, thousands of years later, who was shot dead for the exact same reason, which is the fear of what his leadership would mean for the future. In April 14th, 1865, the American Civil War was ending. Lincoln had won. The Union was saved, but to John Wilkes Booth, an actor, a Confederate sympathizer, Lincoln was the enemy who had destroyed the South and its way of life. Killing him wasn't just a revenge, it was a statement. Booth knew exactly where Lincoln would be at that night, at First Theater, watching a play. He slipped into the presidential box, waited for the laughter of the audience to cover the sound, and fired a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head. In seconds, the leader who had just saved the United States was gone. But here is the twist. Booth thought he had inspired a Confederate uprising. Instead, the South collapsed even faster. Lincoln became martyr, and his death united the North against Booth's cause. Once again, an assassination didn't stop history. It pushed it forward even harder. And this same pattern repeats over and over. When you take out the man, you don't always take out the idea. Sometimes the idea burns brighter, just like it did in India, when a man of peace was gunned down at close range. January 30, 1948, India had just gained independence from Britain, but the country was torn apart by violence between Hindus and Muslims. Gandhi was the man who had led the freedom movement through non-violence, and he was now trying to calm the storm. But to Nathuram Godse, a Hindu nationalist, Gandhi wasn't a savior, he was a traitor. Godse believed Gandhi was giving too much to Muslims at the cost of Hindus, and in his mind, killing Gandhi was the only way to stop him. As Gandhi walked into his evening prayer meeting in New Delhi, Godse stepped forward bowed and fired 3 bullets into his chest. The father of the nation collapsed in silence. What followed was shock across the world. India mourned, but Gandhi's death didn't erase his message. If anything, it immortalized it. The man was gone, but his philosophy of peace and resistance lived on stronger than ever. The pattern is seen again in America, just 2 decades later, when another leader fighting for equality was targeted.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was standing on the balcony of Lorraine Motel in Memphis, preparing for another day in the civil rights struggle. His words had shaken America, ending segregation, ending injustice, giving Black Americans a voice that could no longer be ignored. But to James L. Ray and to the hateful forces in America at that time, King wasn't just a preacher of peace, he was a threat. A man whose dream could change the power balance of the country. Ray fired a rifle from a boarding house window. A single shot hit King in the neck. Within an hour, he was dead. The reaction was explosive. Riot broke out in more than 100 American cities. King's death didn't silence the movement. It pushed it into overdrive. The Civil Rights Act gained even more urgency because of that single bullet. 22nd November 1963, President John Kennedy rode through Dallas in a motorcade, smiling, waving, full of energy. Then came the shot. The first hit was on his throat. The second blew through his head. Chaos erupted. Jacqueline Kennedy, drenched in her husband's blood, crawled onto the back of the car. Lee Harvey Oswald was arrested, but questions began immediately. Was it really him, or was it Soviets, the CIA, the Mafia? Till this day, no one has given a final satisfying answer to these questions. But one thing was clear: Kennedy's assassination changed America. It ended the era of post-war innocence. It created a culture of suspicion, conspiracy, and distrust in governments that has never fully gone away. And when leaders fall like this, it doesn't just wound one country, it shakes the world, just like it did in Pakistan, when the first female prime minister in Muslim world was assassinated after years of political struggle.
Grief and fury in Pakistan over the assassination of the opposition leader Benazir Bhutto. Just over a week before the country's elections, she was attending a political rally when her killer struck. The last image of her alive shows her waving to supporters from her car before she was shot in the neck. The gunman then blew himself up. At least 20 other people are dead.
December 27, 2007. Pakistan streets were alive with chants and rallies. Benazir Bhutto, twice prime minister and first woman to lead a Muslim-majority country, had just returned from exile to challenge the political establishments once more. To her supporters, she represented hope. To her enemies, she represented danger. As she waved to the crowd from her armored vehicle in Rawalpindi, gunfire erupted. Seconds later, a suicide bomber blew himself up. Bhutto was dead before she reached the hospital. The government blamed militants linked to Al-Qaeda, while others pointed to elements inside Pakistan's powerful intelligence service. For her followers, the assassination wasn't just about killing one person, it was about extinguishing a chance for democracy reform. Her death sent Pakistan spiraling deeper into political instability, another reminder that when leaders push too close to the edge of the change, their lives become bargaining chip in power struggle. And that same cold calculation played out decades earlier in the very different parts of the world when Israel sent its agent on a mission of revenge that stunned the globe. Say this, in September 1972, the Munich Olympics was supposed to be a showcase of peace. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. Palestinian militants from Black September stormed the Israelite athletes' quarters, taking hostages. By the time it was over, 11 Israelite athletes were dead. Israel's response was not loud, but it was ruthless. Under the directive of Prime Minister Golda Meir, Mossad launched Operation Wrath of God, which was a secret campaign to track down and assassinate everyone involved in planning Munich. For years, one by one, the operatives were hunted down in Europe and Middle East. Some were gunned down in the streets, others killed in bomb blasts. It was a campaign that blurred the line between justice and revenge, and it told the world something chilling. Israel would never let its enemies rest. And while state-backed killings are chilling in their precision, sometimes it's a lone gunman driven by obsession who alters history. Just like it happened outside New York Hotel in 1980.
On Monday, the 8th of December 1980, just before 11 p.m., Mark Chapman shot John Lennon outside the former Beatles' New York home.
And as Lennon walked into the building, Chapman pulled out a revolver and fired 5 shots. 4 of them hit Lennon in the back. He collapsed, bleeding before he could reach the hospital. Chapman later said he killed Lennon because he wanted to be famous. There was no political conspiracy, no grand plot, just obsession and emptiness that turned into murder. Lennon's assassination showed another side of calculated killings. Sometimes they are not about government or wars, but about personal demons that feed on celebrity. And yet, when killings are tied directly to politics, the impact spreads far wider. Just ask India, where 2 prime ministers who are from the same family were both assassinated in span of less than a decade.
I looked, it was on a trolley without a sheet, lay the Prime Minister of India soaked in blood.
October 31st, 1984. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi walked through the garden of her residence in New Delhi, heading towards a TV interview. She was India's Iron Lady, tough and controversial. A leader who had just overseen a brutal military assault on Sikh separatists at the Golden Temple months earlier. But that operation had consequences. That morning, 2 of her Sikh bodyguards, Ben Senke and Satwan Singh, opened fire at close range. Indira Gandhi was hit over 30 times. She died within hours. Her death triggered a wave of anti-Sikh riots across India. Thousands of Sikhs were killed in days of brutal violence. The assassination didn't just remove a leader. It ripped open deep religious and political wounds that scared nations for decades. And almost 7 years later, her own son, Rajiv Gandhi, would face a similar fate. He was killed by a suicide bomber from Tamil Tigers, a family tied to power but undone by violence. But no assassination left as large mark on modern global politics as the one that unfolded in Sarajevo in 1914, an event that dragged the entire world into its deadliest war. June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria, heir to the throne of Austro-Hungarian Empire, was traveling through Sarajevo. Tensions were already high in Balkan, with nationalist groups pushing against imperial rule. That morning, a young Bosnian Serb nationalist named Gavrilo Princip seized his chance. Standing on the street corner, he pulled out a pistol and shot Archduke and his wife at point blank.
Princip later claimed that Sophie's presence gave him a moment's pause, but whether that is true or not, who knows. What we do know is that he pulled his gun out and fired, shooting the couple at point-blank range.
Both died within minutes. The assassination set off a chain reaction no one could stop. Austria declared war on Serbia. Alliances kicked in, Russia mobilized, Germany struck. Within weeks, the world was engulfed in World War I. Tens of millions would die. It was proof that sometimes the bullet of one man doesn't just end a life. Unfortunately, it reshaped the entire globe. In the end, when you look closely, you will discover that these assassinations strip away the illusion of politics, reality, and even friendship. They show how fragile trust is when power, ideology, or survival is at stake. Even one of them left behind confusion, suspicion, and unanswered questions because the act of pulling the trigger is never the end of the story. Those assassins should have asked, what happens next after I have done this? The deeper lesson in this is, assassination is not just about killing a person, it's about sending a message. The message might be fear, control, or revenge, but history proves that the message never fades. Decades later, people are still arguing, investigating, and questioning what really happened and why. That is why these events are not just killings, they are permanent scars on the society that lived through them. And sadly, there will be more assassination that will be done for the wrong cause. If you love the truth and want to be part of the truth, don't forget to like, subscribe, and until next time, bye for now.